Hi there, it's Babs here from Babs Gets Crafty, and today I'm going to show you this week's knitting stitch of the week, which is to create this beautiful textured pattern. I call each of these little dips dimples, because that's what I think they look like to me, little dimples within the fabric, and it creates this beautiful sort of diamond textured effect throughout. It's worked using slip stitches, which means that you actually get a nice warm double layer effect to the fabric that you create using this stitch. Now I've written the instructions for both working flat and working in the round in the blog post that accompanies this tutorial. I'll show you it working flat and then just explain the simple difference between working flat and working in the round, and you'll understand why I'm not going to record an entirely separate video for working in the round. Now you can cast on any number of stitches. This is a 2-stitch repeat worked over 4 rows, so it's a very, very useful stitch for filling in. Perfect for cables, and if you've got some infill on a mix and match cable design. So I shall start showing the actual technique. So we start off with a knit one and a slip. We're now going to knit, and then we're going to slip as if to purl. We're going to knit, we're going to slip, we're going to knit, slip and knit. Now if you can't see the pattern starting to form as you work your way through this stitch, it means that your tension isn't quite high enough. So if you work it loosely, then you won't get these little dimples here. If I just zoom in slightly so you can see the bottom of my work, here we go. Let's see if that is... don't need 6 times. There we go. So if we zoom in slightly, you can actually see this this texture has a raised stitch and then a lowered stitch, and if you don't have your tension high enough, then you won't get that effect and it will look quite flat. So have an experiment, have a play around, and if it's not quite giving you that texture that you're after, then that just means that you need to up the tension slightly. So we've done 1 row alternating between knitting and slipping, which at the back you can see that you've knit a stitch, slipped a stitch, knit a stitch, slipped a stitch. And now we're going to purl our way back. That's all it is on this row. All the even rows, all the wrong side rows are purl all the way through. And again, maintain that tension so that you've still got those dips and dimples on the front of the fabric. So here we are, we've purled through the lot, and so we turn around. And as you can see, we've now got slightly larger stitches and slightly smaller hidden away stitches. Now if you get confused about which stitch you're supposed to start with, where you have a larger stitch, that will be a knit this time around. Where you have a stitch that's disappearing into the distance, that will be a slip. So we have a knit, a slip, a knit and a slip. So we're clearly starting with a slip stitch. So we slip as if to purl, and then we knit on the slightly larger stitch. And that is what gives us this alternating diamond effect, because we're just moving the forward stitch to the back and the backward stitch to the front each time we work, so that they're constantly being moved back and forth to create this interesting texture. And again, it's just another row of slip and knit and slip and knit and slip and knit, which becomes beautifully mindless if you're not trying to record, look through a monitor and talk at the same time. Otherwise it suddenly becomes incredibly taxing. So yes, you're alternating everything, so you can see that you've got the knitted stitches being pulled forward, the slip stitches being pushed to the back. No, I've got that the wrong way around. You've got the slipped stitches being pulled forward and the knitted stitches being pushed to the back. And then you finish off the 4-row repeat by doing a, guess what? A row of purl. So I'm not going to show you this, I might fizz through this part. But what I will show you is that where the last stitch was slipped, we're still going to work that stitch. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to purl back into it. So we're going to put the yarn over the top of our needle, and then we're going to purl around the needle so that we can continue on as a normal purl stitch. And then we work through those stitches that were slipped and those stitches that were knitted all the way back to the beginning. Try not to purl two of them together, which, as you can see, it could be quite easy to do, especially where that tension is a little bit higher, because the knitted stitch will just push the slipped stitch forward. So if I pull that off, you can see that this stitch is being pushed forward by this stitch. So if you need to, just pull it back with your thumb and then purl round as you continue on down to the rest of the row. So you can hold this stitch back while you can actually access the slipped stitch. And that is really all there is to this incredibly simple stitch, except I've now got myself tied up in a knot around my cable. Okay, so now that I've undone that rather confusing little knot, I will just finish off to the end of the row, and then I will explain to you how you would work this in the round. Now, if you're used to working in the round, you probably already know the answer, but if not, fear not, it's very, very straightforward. The difference between working in the round and working back and forth is that you only ever work on the right side of the fabric when you work in the round. So unlike working flat, I'm working on the back at the moment. This is the reverse of the fabric, the wrong side. And then the side with that lovely little dimply texture is the front side, the right side of the fabric. So this is the front side and the right side. And what would normally happen is that when you are working in the round, you don't turn from the front to the back, you stay on the front at all times, which means that these rows that are currently purl for working in flat, when you work in the round, will just be a row of plain knit. So you'll do a round of knit and then a round of slip knit, or knit slip, and then you'll do another round of all knit. And that is all you need to get this beautiful texture. So hopefully that's been helpful, it's been useful, and if so, give it a thumbs up and come back looking for our next stitch of the week next time around. Until then, I'll say bye for now. Bye!